Today I'm going to do a tips and tricks video with this saw behind me here, and soon you will realize with this awesome saw that your projects will come to life. Please like and subscribe, comments down below, and thanks for watching. Let's get started. There are several different types of miter saws. There is a single bevel miter saw that bevels in one direction. There is a dual bevel miter saw that bevels in two directions. And then there is a dual bevel sliding compound miter saw that essentially doubles the width of its cuts. In this video, we will be using a 10-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw. Let's make sure the blade is plumb and square. We are looking good. Let's go over some features of the miter saw. This is the handle and trigger. Laser button. Blade guard, blade. The actual laser for this saw. Some saws don't have a laser. Here's the laser in action on my saw. Here's the handle to change the miter angle. Here's the table and the fence for supporting your material. Here's an example of changing the miter angle on your miter saw. Going both ways here. There is an angle gauge in the back for bevel tilt adjustment. This is a dual bevel miter saw, so it's going to bevel both ways, as you can see here. And then there's a dust collection system here on the back. So here I am, I'm going to make a zero clearance guide for the miter saw. Pretty handy little guide you can make. You'll see what I do here. Basically, it helps you make very accurate cuts when using your miter saw, because you end up lining. You make a mark on your piece of wood you're cutting after you install the guide on there, and you just line your pencil mark up to the zero clearance guide cutout, and you don't have to drop your blade down to see where your blade's going to cut on the piece of wood. You just line it up with the groove in the zero clearance guide. Pretty cool little thing. Here's a little example here. Just line your pencil mark right up to the side of the cut mark there in the zero clearance guide. Right there, either side, and you're good to go. Here's a quick safety tip. Make sure not to cross your arms under the blade. Secure any loose clothing, jewelry, long hair. Make sure that your wood is supported on the ends. Make sure when you cut, you're making up for the blade. The blade is roughly an 1/8 inch to 3/16 of an inch. I'm lining my marks up to the zero clearance guide to make sure I'm cutting on one side of the line or the other, and not cutting over the line and putting the blade on the middle of my mark. If you're trying to do accurate cuts, doing finish work, you have to make sure you're on one side of the line or the other, and also make sure you keep your hands out of blade's way. There's marks on the saw, as you can see. I showed you there, and put pressure down on your wood, gentle pressure. Here's a little hack. When cutting multiple small pieces of wood, use a stop block here with a clamp, and this can help out a lot if you're doing small pieces of wood. But me as a contractor, I don't usually cut small pieces of wood like that. If I do, I grab a bigger piece of wood and I cut a little piece off each end of the piece of wood instead of cutting multiple pieces. Then I get away with having to make the stop block thing. But it can help for DIY beginners. So here's an example. If you're doing longer repetitive pieces of wood, for instance, if you're doing a deck railing, you're doing 2x2 pickets, and you need like 65 2x2 pickets, you would use the miter saw stand end supports there, as I showed there, extending, and you would set those to the length you needed, like 29.5, and lift the end up there as a stop and blow and go. And you would take the zero clearance thing off, obviously, because that at that point it's not any good. So here's the saw. I'm showing you this is a dual bevel saw, and here it is doing a dual bevel. And then soon here you'll see me doing a compound miter cut, which is you're changing the miter angle of the table and then putting a bevel on the upper part of the saw that slides there, and it's 2 angles in one, and that's it. So you don't use compound miters very often unless you're doing crown molding, but I thought I'd have you check that out. So this is just a regular miter cut, not a compound miter. It's just a regular miter cut. I just moved the table, whatever degrees it is there on the table. Now to do a compound miter cut, you have to take the fences off the rear, or else the saw blade will hit them. So here I am taking off the fences on both sides, and I'm going to set the saw I'm going to set a bevel on the upper part, and I'm going to cut a dual bevel cut on this piece of wood here. So this is the cut you would do if you were doing crown molding, something similar to this cut. Not these angles I'm doing, but these are just random angles I'm doing, but this is what you would do to cut a piece of crown molding. Long to short, baby. Short to long. Here's my angle finder for my dual bevel on the back of my saw here. Just having you check that out. All saws are different, how you move it around and so on. This one has a button. It's kind of complicated, even for me as being a professional. Here's another look at the compound miter cut. One more time. So here's how you mortise out a piece of wood, set up your saw. This is how my saw works. Other saws are different. Mine has a lever on it and a screw, and you pull it out, and you screw the screw out as much as you need to stop the blade to go down however deep you want your mortise. Like I said, other saws have different mechanisms to do this, but this is how mine works. Just having you check that out. And then you just cut left to right with the depth of the blade you set. Easy enough. So here's my pro tip of the video. I'm going to make this jig to cut small pieces of wood, and I've seen this jig all over YouTube, and I don't know where they got it, because I've been making this thing for years. A lot of contractors know about this, obviously, and someone stole it, put it on YouTube, but I'm going to make one for you in this video, and it's a pretty neat little contraption. Check it out. Basically, it's just a 2x2, and I ripped down a piece of 2x2 and a 1/4 inch strip, sanded it down, and glued it, pin nailed it together, and then on the end I put a piece of rubber, glue a piece of rubber on the end, and then you round off the bottom corner there so it can rock back and forth, and easy enough. That's it. And then you can go ahead, if you need to cut a little tiny piece of wood, which you usually don't, but sometimes you might. I rarely use these things, but like I said earlier in the video, you just grab a piece of wood, scrap piece, because usually when you're doing big jobs, you'll have like 100 pieces of scrap under your table, and you just grab a bigger piece and and cut a waste piece, and then just cut a small piece off the end. So I don't really use these that much, but they're awesome for DIY homeowners and beginners and so on. But check it out. Real quick, one last thing about the zero clearance jig in the beginning. There's a con to it. The only thing that stinks about it is that you can only do straight cuts with it. Once you start doing miters and compound miters, it has to be taken off. So thought I'd mention that to you.